We are back here at the CyberHub Engage podcast in beautiful Augusta, Georgia. It is 80-degree weather day outside. I'm wearing a jacket. Under this, I got a t-shirt because it's that kind of weather. Maybe later we'll go walk along the river, Micah. We can hold hands and listen to country music and talk about Jesus. I've got the lovely, magnificent Sarah Rees with me. She is the director of Cyber Workforce Academy at the Georgia Cyber Center. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm awesome. I'm so glad we finally get to do this.
I know, me too.
This has been like a long time coming from the day Randall and I sat in your Equifax like breakout session, and I was geeking out over it. I was like, oh my God, this is so much. This isn't like the boring breakouts.
I know, right?
It was like my favorite breakout.
Well, it has to be a little fun.
I have two favorite breakouts. One's with Dan Smith, who's a cybersecurity researcher. He did one on the dark web, and he does an amazing breakout on the dark web. I think the fact that this guy isn't keynoting stuff and talking about it more mind boggles me. The company that he works for are losers for not utilizing that kind of knowledge to really leverage it. And yours.
Thank you. It's not just the knowledge. You have to have the passion.
I missed you at CyberHub Summit this year.
Yeah.
I saw you registered. Thought you were going to come and surprise me.
It's been so busy. I missed you at B-Sides.
Spoke there. It was a Saturday.
I know.
It's Shabbat. I'm at synagogue.
I'll send you the YouTube link.
Send me the YouTube link. And then next time, how about you guys do B-Sides on like a normal day?
I know. Hey, I know. I get it.
All right. Do it on a Sunday.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do on a Sunday.
Or a Monday.
Or a Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
Or a Wednesday.
Just make
or a
your
Thursday.
Week good. I agree.
Did it on a Saturday. I wanted to be here for B-Sides.
I know.
I saw you were speaking at B-Sides. I was going to come. Yeah. I love B-Sides.
Yeah.
Especially in like a small place like Augusta where everyone knows everyone.
Oh, God. I know. It was like a family reunion.
Right.
There's people that you're like, oh, my gosh, I haven't seen you in 3 years.
You're like,
awesome.
Hey, where have you been?
Yeah. It was good. It was good.
And this B-Sides is an awesome chapter.
It is. It is. And, we don't just have local people. That's kind of the cool thing is
right.
You get to see all your friends. And then you get to see people from outside the area, make new connections. And even some of, like, the people that I know. One fellow that I ran into I hadn't seen in a few years. I was his instructor, like, years ago. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm up in D.C. Here's my card. And we got to chat about what he's doing now. So it's great. Like, he still comes here for that event.
Yeah. I love B-Sides. And I love B-Sides in specific places. Like I was in B-Sides Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Oh, I'm sure that was amazing.
Huh.
I want to go to Charlotte.
So we can talk offline about that.
Okay.
But I will call
Charlotte.
Maria. I love going to Charlotte too.
Yeah, I love Charlotte. It's so cool there.
Charlotte is fun. Mm-hmm. It's like Charleston.
It is.
Charleston is fun.
It is. But it's, Charleston has the coastal thing. Charlotte just has a different vibe.
It's like a big city.
It is, but it's like, I feel like it's almost got the Asheville mountainy thing going, but not. It's just something in between. I love it.
There was a cyber event going on this weekend that I was trying to talk to the university. I forgot the name of the university. Out in North Carolina. It was like a Christian college. Mm-hmm. And they got a ton of money from the governor of North Carolina, and they're doing kind of like a cyber event, but they didn't really have a lot of juice to their agenda. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to drive out there and just juice it up. Yeah, juice it up for him a little bit, I think it's so important that, it's cool when there's instructors like you because you make cyber fun.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I go to I'm going for my CISP next month.
Oh, yeah.
And I signed up for a class, and then I went and asked for a refund after 30 minutes.
Wow.
Like, I went to the instructor, and I won't say who it is. I don't want to blast. I'm not doxing anyone. I don't dox. I will tell you that I was so bored that I went, and they were like, James, we don't give refunds. And I'm like, I have a podcast. And I'd never take advantage of my platform here, but I'm not sitting through this for a week.
Right. If it bores you, you're not going to learn anything. That's the end of it.
I was asleep 20 minutes in, and it was the introduction part.
Yeah, that's rough. That's really rough.
Right? Like, you got to have fun instructors.
Yeah.
Like you're fun. Like,
Thank
if
you.
you're teaching a CISP class, I want to know. Any class that you teach, just let me know. I'll show up for it because you're fun.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit with our listeners about your background? Because
Sure.
they don't, they haven't had their pre-interview conversation?
So I actually joined the military when I was 17. Most people, when they do the math on this, they go, oh, no, you can't be da-da-da. And I'm like, no, I was 17 when I joined. That's why. Because I've been serving for 18 years now. And they're like, how's that possible?
Wait a minute. We're the same age? When's your birthday?
Oh, you're going to make me say on air how old I am.
Just don't say.
July 31st.
Okay, I'm younger.
Okay.
You're 83?
84.
Okay, I'm older.
We're the senior millennials is what we are.
Are
we're not,
we?
Yeah,
Is
we're
that what
like
we are?
on the cusp to where we're still millennials, but we're the elders.
Like
Yeah.
we still relate to the Vietnam guys.
Yeah.
We still relate to the
Like,
baby boomers.
Yeah, we're looking at the rest of the millennials like, you guys need to get
All
your
of a
stuff
sudden
together.
at 35, I want a pickup truck.
Yeah, right? Like, get your lives right.
I want a Ford. We were just talking about that on the drive up here. I was like, I'm thinking again a Ford F-150. And I'm like, when did I ever want a Ford F-150? When
Like,
I lived in Israel, I had a Prius.
Nothing to put inside of it, but I want
One. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like all of a sudden, like I miss like Clint Eastwood and like the baby boomers, right? Like, especially after
They're like, better times. What?
especially after Secretary Mattis retired.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right? Like to me, he was like that last kind of leadership in military
From the era.
yes. But that trickled down. Like I still have it.
Right.
I still have that
Right.
zeal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I have, because I still serve in the National Guard, so I have young soldiers, which it's crazy because I'm going, oh my gosh, you could almost be my child, And so I have young soldiers, and it's a generational difference, and I don't think it's anything like there's no better or worse. It's just different, And so it's interesting to get to experience that and engage with folks that are kind of in the same place I was almost 20 years ago and see that difference in, because it was actually 9/11 when I was at the MEP Center, like doing my oath and stuff.
Really?
Oh, I swear to you.
I just
And
finished basic.
The worst part is, I bet you were more scared than I was. The worst part is my parents had talked me into this military thing, and they said, honey, we haven't been in a major war in, forever. It's fine, don't worry. Because I was all worried about
Bosnia
going to
doesn't
war.
count. Bosnia
Yeah.
was just, we
Yeah.
bombed those
It's
assholes.
Fine. It's fine.
That's the Air Force. That's
So-
for Micah.
So I'm like, okay, all right, you're right. And they're like, you can get an education, get some skills. So I go and sign up. And of course, 911, I'm there doing the oath. And they're like, yeah, we have to evacuate. And I'm going, this is a joke, right? This is hazing. What is this? And I got stuck in Denver for 4 days because they grounded
You did
all the
MEPS in
flights.
Denver?
I did.
Did you stay at the Red Lion?
Yes. No, don't tell me you did
Yes,
too.
I did. Oh,
This is so
with the
weird.
worst eggs.
Right?
Did we just become we were best friends before, but now we're like. So MEPS at the Red Lion in Denver, the 5 a.m. pickup
Yep.
to take you to stand outside of a building. If it was September, I remember that morning. That was a nice day in Denver that day. I had just come home from basic. I was in Fort Sill. I had just come home from my AIT because I was in the Guard. And yeah.
And you were about to do your hometown recruiting, weren't you? Didn't they give you the 2 weeks? Was that after AIT? I think it was. They give you the 2 weeks to
Go home
basically
and-
hang out with your friends and tell them the
How
Army's
great it was,
but-
yeah. I got to blow shit up. You guys don't understand.
Yeah.
We shot at different shit.
I had a grenade in this hand.
I had a rocket propelled grenade here.
Yep. Oh my gosh,
look
Red Lion.
at these abs.
It's like the 7 degrees or something. I don't know.
So
This is crazy.
I was in Charlie Battery at the Army National Guard, and our Charlie Battery was the one that secured DIA that day.
Oh wow.
So I remember we got deployed, and then I went to Fort Carson, and the rest is still a story we can talk about offline. But holy smokes, you were in Denver at 9/11.
I was.
I lived
at
in
the Red
Denver,
Lion that you
at
know.
the Red Lion. That hotel. The only reason they're in business is because of MEPS.
Yes, that's exactly
It is
what it is.
the ghettoest hotel on the planet.
And the poor staff there, because they're just like, yeah, we deal with this every day. Like you
With-
just see their faces.
No one sleeps that night. No one sleeps.
I know. It was
You just get
madness.
drunk.
The MPs actually showed up. I was 17, so I was like, I can't be doing this kind of stuff. I'm gonna get in trouble. But I'm watching the MPs show up. Just it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. So I was there 4 months before you.
Yeah. that is nuts. So that's where I started. And and I remember they told me at MEPS after they got my scores, they said, well, you can just do anything you want. Really, your scores are great. And I said, well, what do you suggest? And they said, how about a light wheel mechanic? Yeah, that's what I did. I laughed real hard. And I said, no, sir. My daddy was a mechanic. I know what that entails. And they go, well, what do you want to do? And I said, something with air conditioning. And I couldn't make that up. That's really what I said. I said, as long as it's inside and there's air conditioning, you just tell me what fits that bill. And they said, how about computers? And, I'm 17 years old, so I'm like, yeah, I like chatting. I've got IRC. Let's do this. So we just kind of, pointed at one. I was like, this one sounds good. And I got my MOS, and I spent kind of the beginning of my Army career with INSCOM and NSA, so around the intelligence folks working, IT and network support. And so that was really fun. And then at some point, I realized I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, so I became a warrant officer. Mm-hmm. And that led me to the second half of that time that I spent on active duty. So I started off in networking. And then I sort of ended up creeping into security, because really, what good's a network if it's not secure, right? It's a pretty big deal. When you look at that CIA triad, each of those, if you look at networking, like, you have to be able to assure CIA, like confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So I started kind of working more on looking at security as a fundamental component of anything IT. And it led me to, after leaving the military and joining the National Guard, so I could kind of settle down here in this lovely city of Augusta, that led me to training for the U.S. Army Cyber School. So I worked there and trained their cyber forces. That was really quite fun. And then this opportunity presented itself, and I absolutely could not say no to that.
So are you originally from Colorado?
I am, yeah.
What part?
So it's a little fuzzy, the background there, but most of my, the majority of my childhood was in Colorado. Before that, I lived in California. So it's a tiny little city called Pagosa Springs. It's off of Highway 160. The closest real town is Durango. They have
You're from the mountains.
Yeah, from way up in the mountains.
All right.
There was a ski resort 45 minutes from my house.
Right. I know Pagosa Springs.
Okay.
I know
Wolf
Durango,
Creek.
Wolf Creek.
It's a beautiful area. There's just not really anything there. So.
Do you watch the Netflix show The Ranch?
Mm-mm.
They shot the whole thing in Colorado.
Really?
Yeah.
So I bet there's a lot of stuff I would recognize.
And what's it called? It's with Ashton Kutcher and Danny Masterson. It's that 70s show.
Yeah. I've heard of that show. Now
what's the name of the city? Show. Can you Google it? The name of the city that's in the ranch. I forgot. It starts with a G, but it's a real city. It's just next to Norwood.
Okay.
Oh my God, what's it called?
So is it Gunnison?
No, it's not Gunnison. It's next to Norwood. It's right by Aspen.
Okay.
Ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh, see, it says the show takes place on the fictional Iron River Ranch in the fictitious small town of Garrison, Colorado.
Garrison,
so
okay.
Garrison is fictitious, but they shot the whole thing just outside of Aspen.
Oh, yeah. It's such a beautiful country, isn't it? Like, just like all the mountains and the colors.
So I went, when I was 14, when we moved back from Israel, we lived in Colorado for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Lafayette, Broomfield, like just outside of Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to spend every weekend. I used to spend every weekend in the mountains. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Not really.
Yeah,
no.
We're sorry.
That's like...
you every time you try to interject in something, Micah, it's like, Army people, Air Force. Now you're like Fort Collins. We're like, no.
Just
no.
say Wyoming. What you really mean is Wyoming.
It's Wyoming, yeah.
That's where you were at.
No one really goes to Fort Collins from Colorado.
Unless they're going to Wyoming.
Unless they're going to Wyoming.
Yeah.
Right, if you're going to like Cheyenne days,
right.
You stop in Fort Collins.
Exactly.
That's, wow.
Yeah.
What part of California?
So most of the time we lived in Marina Del Rey.
All right, so Southern Cal.
Yeah.
I'm from Northern Cal. I was born in San Jose.
Okay.
Holy
I've been
smokes.
up to San Jose. San Francisco, San Jose, it's just everything in Northern California is just beautiful. And it's interesting because it has a different tone than like Southern
California is like really laid back.
Yeah.
Like almost too laid back for me. Like I like I remember like in Northern California. One of my cousins, he was a linebacker for San Jose. He was a lineman for San Jose State, big guy. And whenever we'd go walking around, he'd always be like, if it's raining, he'd be like, we're not going anywhere. Because, just the umbrellas would always like hit him in the eyeballs. Like he'd have to go with sunglasses when it's raining because people's umbrellas.
Oh, God.
Just because he was like 6'6". It's crazy. So you're now in beautiful Augusta, Georgia. You miss Colorado.
We've thought about, my husband and I have, at one point we made this plan. It was like our 5-year escape plan from Augusta. This was really him. I'm content here. But he had this 5-year escape plan to get to Colorado. And it turned out that really what it comes down to is we love the mountains, but we love the coast. We both scuba dive, and we're like, if we go to Colorado, we're going to be really far from any kind of ocean. Like, it stifles
It's
scuba
a 2-hour
diving.
drive. It's a 2-hour flight to LA.
Yeah, but scuba diving in the Pacific's a little different. It's cold and choppy. I like being close to Florida. Pretty good diving down there. Now, I will say Hawaii, that's a little bit further from Colorado.
That's a 6-hour, 7-hour
Yeah,
flight.
yeah.
And now there's direct flights from Denver to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Hawaii airline.
That would be something. So, maybe one day we'll go back there. But for now, we're pretty happy here.
I love Colorado.
It's so pretty. Yeah.
It's
like that
snowing
safe
in Colorado
place
today.
in the middle of the country where it's just that safe place.
So I'll show you offline. I was in Colorado a few weeks ago, and I was driving along 470, like right on the Front Range, like right around like Lakewood and Gunness. The whole area there was just so nice.
Yeah.
Ken Carl and
I think the
Red Rocks.
the dryness in the air is something I really miss too. If I was going to say, like, what do you miss? The colors of the aspens in the fall. I miss that. Snow
I
on
miss
the mountain
4
range.
seasons.
Yes, right. 4 seasons. Exactly. That
I miss 4
covers
seasons.
it. But the humidity, I mean, everyone talks about the humidity in the South, but man, it's...
I go to Colorado every 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm going next week on Monday, and I'm so psyched.
Yeah.
And it's snowing now in Colorado.
I know, isn't that crazy? And then here we're in, like you
80s.
said, you're in a tank top. I've got or you're in a t-shirt. I'm in a tank top.
I haven't worn a tank top since, well,
No, that's
them
me.
days on the ranch out in Colorado. But we should talk about cyber for a little bit.
We should.
People didn't tune in here to listen to us bannering
Like, is
about all
this a
the.
Colorado podcast? What's happening?
We could talk about Colorado and the marijuana industry and how that's affecting cyber and how people are hacking them farms. But we're watching kind of technologies evolve in cyber, and you've been in it from the very, very beginning. Do you feel like there's a technology that's really going to revolutionize cyber?
I don't know that I would make a prediction like that. I will say that I think it's the adoption of certain technologies that are going to change things a lot. Specifically, I think one thing that I find interesting is we have all these automation tools and orchestration tools out there. And, when you look at these from just the perspective of what does this tool give me, what are the benefits and drawbacks and that type of thing, you've got to ask yourself, why wouldn't I use this, right? But you look at so many medium to large enterprises and they're not. Now, I can understand a small enterprise maybe not needing something that robust, maybe not being able to fund training for their staff, or just have that product, in their network. But when you get to a medium to large size enterprise, the fact that you are applying patches manually scares me. Like, that is scary to me. It happens still. People really aren't embracing that.
So push back on that, though. People are afraid of having patches go automatic because if something breaks,
Absolutely, sure.
and especially if it's a critical part of your infrastructure, I mean, that can mean trouble.
Which is why you have to look at your infrastructure, identify critical portions, identify sensitive portions, come up with rollback plans. Like, you can stage updates, you can test updates before rollout. that's the other thing is if you apply it manually and it does break something that maybe you didn't see in your test environment, now you have to manually roll back. With automations, you can build that into your playbook where it just rolls you back automatically. And now you've got so much less downtime because of that rollback that you had to make. And sometimes, I mean, it may not be immediately that you see what it broke. It might be 2 weeks down the line that now you have these indicators, and so it's snowballing, right? And so having that ability to have a process where you can build in those rollback plans and do that gracefully, I think is really revolutionary. And I think for me, I point to that. It's not a silver bullet, nothing is, but we don't have enough time to do all the things that we need to do because there's this list. It's like you're pouring water into a bucket, but you're pouring the water in far quicker than it's, coming out, then you're able to get it out. And if we don't figure out a way to take some of the things that are more repeatable and more programmable out of our security forces workload, then they're going to get bogged down with too much, and they're going to miss things, or there's going to be human error, or we just don't have enough personnel and we can't fund enough personnel for the workload we have. So we have to look at taking some of that workload and mechanizing it, I guess, automating it, so that the people that we have can do the things that we have to have people for, like the actual analysis, the actual problem solving, the forward thinking, all the stuff that human brains do that we just don't have a solution for because AI is not really there, right?
Not yet.
I mean, it's not yet. So we have to kind of still fill that place where we're doing that creative thinking.
See, I completely agree with you when it comes to automation. I feel like automation is really going to transform. Mm-hmm. And it's going to address a lot of the workforce shortage stuff that we keep hearing
Absolutely.
about. And I hate these. We're missing 3 million No, we're not.
I agree.
Stop with these. I feel like these are clickbait headlines that really, really upset me from a practitioner standpoint, right? Because from a practitioner standpoint, you go, well, automation is going to solve a lot of it, like it did in a lot of other industries when we were short. Truck drivers, we
Absolutely.
filled it in a different way. Automation came through, smarter loading, being able to increase efficiencies in trucks so that you can get more across and so forth. I mean, it's just the human ingenuity of understanding that a current crisis isn't a long-term crisis.
Right.
Right? So yes, there's a workforce shortage. Automation is going to address, I think, a lot of the level 1 stuff. When people,
Absolutely, it's that low level stuff that you shouldn't be employing a person for because a robot's going to take that job one day.
Right, like anyone who tells me I want to be a cyber analyst, I go, no, you don't.
Right.
And it's great to start with a security plus, but do that in high school so that you get a basic understanding. Don't bet a job on it because that job is going to be gone in 6 months, a year, 2 max.
Yeah.
You'll end up as an analyst at a vendor, at a cybersecurity vendor, kind of like, or working in a SOC for a vendor where they need to have that human piece kind of looking at stuff because, the legal liability piece of it, where until they get fully automated. But
you're right. That's not something at a lower level organization that you're not going to find those jobs.
Right. Analysts exist in enterprise. They don't exist anywhere else because everywhere else they're looking for a cloud security engineer. They're looking for network engineers. They're looking for infrastructure engineers. That's what they're looking for. Yeah. So when it's so funny because it's if you're ever in those Facebook groups or those LinkedIn groups and someone will come in and be like, I want to get into cybersecurity, and everyone's like security plus, and you're like, no.
Do you know how oversaturated it is when you look at that? I know you know.
Yeah.
Like, I know the data out there, it's across the nation between a 6 to 7 ratio of certification holders to job postings requiring it. That's pretty saturated.
Well, I think the other part of it is, the challenge is it comes, like, I don't have a college degree. I couldn't do college, right? I couldn't do universities. I couldn't. It wasn't for me. Does that make me a bad person? No, I've always been kind of like an entrepreneur, or if I got a job, it was based on me learning my skills. In cyber, I never took a cert. I'm now taking my first cert test, which is my CISP. I didn't need to, right? But now I realize I got to have some of these certs. So I'm doing my CISP this year. Next year I'm doing cloud security. Why am I doing those two? Because those are the two that I really want to have, right? I don't want to do the compliance certs
Right.
because I'm not an auditor.
Yeah, not where your heart is.
It's not where I don't want to go in with an Excel sheet and do that. And plus, I think those auditor jobs are going to be gone in 3 years. I've already seen technologies.
Machines can do that.
Right. There's already
Exactly.
companies out there that do this.
Exactly.
It's
Everywhere. Every product, or every domain across the scope,
Correct.
has products that are emerging that are going to ensure compliance checking.
And
Because we can't leave it to people.
I think in cybersecurity too, compliance can't be something where I hire you, Sarah, to do it once a year. It has to be continuous auditing.
Right.
It's like pen testing.
Right.
The future of pen testing and auditing in cybersecurity is similar. Continuous. 24/7, just like
'Cause you
CCTV.
can't just be compliant for a month.
No.
And then the rest of the year, you're defeating the purpose of having compliance standards, and you're really just completely undermining all the usefulness that they do supply. I mean, they're not the answer to everything, but there are some good things they bring to the table, and you're missing all that when you're compliant for, I don't know, 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the audit, right?
and you get these. I feel like whenever I look at these different risk or auditing frameworks, and there's a new one popping up every day, like certs, and I'm just like, please stop. I realize that there's people who are looking at cybersecurity and going, how can I make my cash cow in cyber? But what they're doing is they're creating unnecessary noise, and they're really standing in the way of practitioners being able to really do their job. Because what they're doing is they're going to the CIOs and CTOs, and they're having a conversation with them, and then they're going to the CISO. They're like, well, what about this? And now the CISO has to go and study something or to explain it to their boss, and you're almost at a point where you're just like, stop. Let us really do our job, which is really build the right security infrastructure. I mean, do you follow one framework or another, or?
I think you have to take the good from everything. And like one thing, and I'll just say like compliance standards specifically, that drives me crazy is, they build checklists in a way that's purposefully broad. And I understand why. If you say, this compliance line here says you must have network segmentation, that could mean a lot of things. Why do they build it that way? Because not every company can implement it the same way based on the technology and the architecture that they're working with, right? There's different ways to segment a network. So they can't say exactly how to do it. But then the problem is, because it's so broad, I could take that and just do the lowest, like the lowest level, most, quick win ever that really doesn't supply me with the protection I need, but it meets the letter of the law. And so now we have that problem where, it's a compliance checklist type of thing, not is this the best solution for securing this data? Is this the best solution for our company and growing our architecture as things evolve? Like, that's not taken into consideration. It's how do I check mark this?
Right. Well, cybersecurity today is a checklist item. That's the sad part. That's the real sad part.
Right. It has to be culture.
And it's not just that it's a checklist, like you said. Like, I have a problem with checklist cyber because I feel like compliance doesn't equal security, right? Compliance equals, I don't know. I mean, technically, Equifax was compliant.
Right. It's saying that, we are following these best practices, or we've hardened our systems. But have you hardened them enough? I mean, to what standard?
But that was the thing with Equifax, right? I mean, your first breakout session was around Equifax, and by all means, when you study it, right, you look at it and you go, all right, so they were compliant. They've passed all their audits. That's why they're not being sued for negligence.
Right.
Because had they failed their audits and failed to take steps to do it, Equifax would be in a completely different boat today. There'd be criminal charges possibly against some of those folks. That'd be held to the SEC criminal liabilities. They were compliant. They just weren't secure.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem.
And I think that's the one missing aspect of Equifax that people always overlook, and no one's really talking about it, which is Equifax was compliant. They've passed every single audit. But that compliance didn't equal them being secure. And, you said it before we started recording. Apache Struts wasn't the only reason they had a problem.
No.
They had a slew of challenges that they needed to deal with.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they snowballed. All those little issues compounded because it was a matter of, you might be compliant here, but if it's not the best answer and you can compound that weakness with this other weakness where maybe you're compliant in this other area too, but not at the standard that you should be, you put all those together and you have this massive, iceberg of danger.
They were the Titanic.
Yeah, exactly. And they ran right into that.
That ran right, and they had so many chances to avoid it.
Yeah.
But, it's so easy to Monday morning quarterback a post breach.
Right.
Because you said it, it's culture. Cyber should start as a culture. How do we get cyber to be a culture?
I think, one thing that I tend to have a problem with, and I'm not, it's going to be hard for me to articulate, but I think people see cyber as a way to get quick money and resources and attention. And that's what it shouldn't be, because what that's doing is it's breaking up the culture. Because if a CEO or whoever thinks that he can just throw money at a problem and then it goes away because now the CISO's quiet because he got his product, that's not the right takeaway for leadership, right? Going back to what you were saying about compliance and pen testing being continuous, it has to be understood as continuous. And I think that when we start tying cybersecurity to money and resources, we know that those are required and they have to exist, but it's more than that. It's just because I'm giving you the money and resources, are they being employed continuously, consistently, and adequately in order to protect us, right? Is everyone engaging and buying into that culture, or is it just, well, if I give the CISO money, he'll shut up or she'll shut up, right? That can't be the culture that we have.
It can't be. Unfortunately, it is.
I know.
There's a challenge with that being, because a lot of people think that money solves all problems, and it doesn't always do that, as in the case with Capital One.
Right.
They had all the money in the world.
Right.
They had, I think, what was it, like a $500 or $600 million a year cyber budget?
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Really hard to protect against the insider. I don't know that there's too much that you can do for some of those instances.
Well, so I agree with you. I think we've seen more and more stuff come through insider threats, and that's going to be a new challenge. That kind of takes us to the zero trust model and that whole, can we really live? I don't believe that we can live in a zero trust world.
I agree.
I don't think a company can run on zero trust, because I feel like people want to be trusted. People want to feel like they're being trusted. They want to feel empowered. The second you take that away from them, you're going to have an immense amount of attrition. I mean, look at North Korea. People defect all the time.
Well, I think,
zero trust.
Yeah, when you look at a zero trust model, if I can't trust anyone, then we're all individual actors. And what is that? Without anything else, that's anarchy.
Right.
We have to have a system, and that system has to have governance and rules and trust. And so I think that if we move away from that too far, we get towards that no trust model, we really are going to have an issue. That being said, I think rather than thinking about it in terms of no trust, I think it should be more of looking at building trust where you need it, and then understanding your risk points, right? So I may not completely trust you, but I take on that risk, right? Like, I know
everything we've been through.
I know what the risk is with dealing with you, right?
Yeah, I'm a big mouth.
But I mean, it's one of those things. Like, if you completely trust an entity, risk comes along with that too, right?
So, I agree with you. I think you need to know where to place trust and where not to. Like, I don't place trust on any of my vendors.
Right.
At all.
Right.
I have a zero trust model with all of my vendors. I don't trust you.
Right.
Categorically.
There's no transparency there. It's too hard to manage. You just can't do it.
I don't know who you hire.
Right.
I know who I hire.
Right.
I don't know who you hire, as was the case with Capital One.
Exactly.
As was the case with Lion Air and Malindo Air in Asia, where they hired an Indian company to do work for them, and the two employees out of India decided to go into their, AWS Elasticsearch servers and take client data. I mean, and they took passport numbers, which to me, there's specific data that I feel like is extremely sensitive. OPM, I think, was a breach that, but I felt like Marriott that died out
Mm-hmm.
was a far more significant breach than Capital One and Equifax combined. Felt like if you were trying to put together a picture of intel on
Mm-hmm.
movement of people
Mm-hmm.
between OPM, Equifax, and Marriott,
You have it all.
you have it all.
Yeah.
And those from the reported breaches. There's other breaches that are unreported that
Yeah.
Lord knows how much more data they've got, or breaches that we don't know of yet, where they're able to know every aspect of every second of your life, so they can really paint a picture of that person, whoever it is that's trying to do that, whether it be to steal your identity, whether it be to be able to follow you around and predict your next move so that they can wait around the corner. I mean, do you remember like the old, what is it, the murder files, the forensic files?
Yeah.
Do you watch forensic files?
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
So, they're always like, he was waiting in the darkness. And you're like, how did he know to wait in the dark? Right? Because there's that aspect of most crime is done because people know who you are.
Right.
And cybercrime's no different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know, if you just go back to the very basics of, the whole, kill chain and all of that, it doesn't matter if you subscribe to a certain model or if you're just looking at this from a common sense perspective. If I want to target someone, it doesn't matter what I want to do to them. It might be steal your car. It might be steal your identity. I have to know enough about you to do that, right? So it all comes back to intelligence. So, I agree. These breaches, you're seeing all of this data extracted, and we don't know where a lot of it goes. And it's giving a lot of people out there the ability to paint a very accurate picture, like you said, of everyday life. Just it hones in their targeting, right? Whereas before maybe they had to, use a shotgun. Now they have a sniper rifle, right? Like it's no longer scattershot because they can target you so specifically with the information that exists.
So I'm watching this show on YouTube, and it's the UK Border Force.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the border police in the UK, and it's passport control and all that. And one of the key crimes that they investigate is forged documents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of forged documents start in cyberspace. What's really interesting is this show's 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's from 2008. These
Yeah.
guys were being filmed in 2007, 2008, 2009. So we're 10 years out. We're a decade. And I'm like, wow, this is the same problem. It's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
We knew it back then. We still haven't addressed it now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting worse now because now they have real passport numbers. They have real images of passports.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a coworker just Friday, which is, I'm just flashbacking to that conversation because we were talking about something in terms of vendor verification, and she brought up deep fakes.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, where does it stop? Because if they can create a voice stream and you can get a call from, a computer, a machine, and where does it stop? She said, is it a matter of we have to have in-person verification? And I said, well, yeah, I see how that would be a great tool, but if I'm in Georgia and your business is in California, that's not happening.
Right. Not easily.
No.
I mean, there's no way for you to really do that either,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what's in-person verification? Let's
Right.
say you do video calls.
Deep
I
fake.
FaceTime you. You FaceTime me. We know that there's deep fakes for
Yeah.
that. There's really, we go to the zero trust model of, do I trust you to do business with you?
Mm-hmm.
Do I trust you to hire you?
Mm-hmm.
Do I trust you to do the work I'm hiring you to do?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times there's no real solutions for it because I got to trust someone in order to do something.
Right.
Then how much trust do I give that person? And then privacy laws.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's how much trust, right? It's not zero trust. It's you have to have levels, right? I might give, my credit card company a much different level of trust than I give the smoothie shop, where I have a rewards card. So I think it's
Brave.
How much trust.
Brave.
I don't.
Very brave.
Yeah, I don't sign up at smoothie shops or anywhere else for store cards. I think that's very. I just don't do it. But
So I don't know why you wouldn't sign up for a smoothie card. You get like a free smoothie like after your 5th smoothie.
okay, so our coffee shop downstairs uses punch cards.
Okay, I
So,
like those.
that's not digital. You don't need my email. I'm on board with you. Let's go analog with my loyalty points.
I think that's awesome. I'm all for analog stuff.
Yeah.
Give me more analog stuff.
Right. Well, I think like loyalty points is a great example of when I go to a store, it drives me crazy when every retailer that I want to buy shoes or a shirt at goes, "Can I get your phone number and email?" I'm like, "No, you cannot, because I don't need more junk in my inbox conditioning me to all these links." And no, I don't want that. Like, I don't. If you want to send me a coupon on my birthday, like, we can send it snail mail, and I can give you my address. Maybe
I'll give you my P.O. box.
Yeah,
I still have a P.O. box.
but I'm still trusting that now you have some information on me. Or maybe I say it's just not worth it, right? So, and honestly, I don't know if Buckle still does it. You know that shop, right? Okay, don't laugh, y'all. Okay. But Buckle, I think they still do it. They would do the punch cards when you'd buy like every $10 worth of whatever, they punch your card. Like, I love that. Like, I'll come back to you if you're not asking me for my email and my, firstborn, child, and just give me a punch card.
So I have this, I like I just updated to the new iOS 13 on my Apple, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but Apple now lets you actually create a temporary email address for your apps.
Oh, that's cool. That is
so you're not
great.
signing in through Facebook
Yeah.
or Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
They generate a temporary password,
Mm-hmm.
a temporary email address,
Mm-hmm.
and then they back it up through your biometrics,
Mm-hmm.
through your Face ID. But
Yeah.
your Face ID is anyway an integration of Apple, so the developer
Mm-hmm.
never gets that.
Mm-hmm.
But now all they can monitor is your app usage,
Right.
but nothing else.
It's a lot less exposure for all of your different cyber digital personas and identities. I like
Correct.
that. I like
And
that.
so I like that. I've literally just updated over the weekend and I started playing with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's really interesting. So I erased a few apps that I had before, downloaded them, signed in again using that stuff. And all of a sudden, all my kind of like cross marketing disappeared.
That's nice. I mean, unless you were really into those targeted
No,
ads.
I wasn't.
Okay, good.
No, I
Some
wasn't.
people must enjoy them with all the data they give away. I don't know.
Well, I have a other podcast called Goodbye Privacy, and I call it my rant podcast, where I talk about, my first season, I went over every single terms and conditions and how we just randomly hit agree on stuff.
So you're saying it was a podcast to go to sleep to? I'm just kidding.
I thought I made it. It was entertaining.
Like, let me read this terms and conditions.
Well, I didn't read it on air.
Okay, good.
I summarized it. I spoke about it.
That sounds much
I indicated the legal ramifications
Right.
of it.
Like, why does this matter?
Well, one
Yeah.
of them was how Facebook essentially asks you for permission to go into your contact list.
Yeah.
And then once it gets your contact list, you're actually given Facebook permission to track your contacts. And your contacts can't do anything
Creepy.
about it.
Creepy.
Legally, that was in there. That freaked me out. I'm like,
Which means they know when you break up. Right? Like they know your relationship status. They know when you break up.
If you
they know
update
if you
it.
unfriend.
right, if you update it, but think of your phone numbers, your contact list on your phone. I'm not talking about your friends on Facebook.
Right.
Your
The people
contact
you
list on your
actually
phone.
know.
So today, Micah
See, I
could
don't
be
have
my.
Facebook, so this is not a concern for me.
But I think that's one of the challenges we have today is a lot of people don't use social media that are in cyber.
Right.
And so we're kind of left out of the dark of how social engineering is being done. And I was at a conference last week. I was at an event with the FBI and Secret Service. And they were saying, they were talking about, random social engineering. And I said, you guys are missing the new social engineering aspect that's happening on LinkedIn. And they go, what is that? And I go, fake
LinkedIn's the
recruiters.
worst. Oh,
And I go,
LinkedIn is
fake
so
recruiters.
bad.
They
Yeah.
go, what do you mean? And I go, I have instances, proof of fake recruiters reaching out to me, wanting to interview me for my dream job somewhere. but all they're trying to do is understand what I do and what my philosophies are so that they can better target organizations I work with or for.
I bet you've gotten the same thing. I've gotten requests in LinkedIn for, hey, we want your insight as an industry professional. If you can do this survey, we will put your name on our report and they like try to offer you all these incentives, because they're like, oh, what you want is your name out there and credibility. So we'll give you that. Just give us your time on this survey. I'm like, nope. Not doing that.
I don't know who you are.
Exactly. Never heard of this survey. I'm out. Like, no.
Right. And then I look at the link, and I typically take the link, go into one of my cold machines, and stick the link on my cold machine.
You're like, oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. This was registered a week ago. I'm going to go with no.
Yeah. Oh, you're using SurveyMonkey Embed Free Edition.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
No.
Right.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
Not doing it. Oh, what's your website? How old's your website? Wait a minute.
Exactly.
All right, let's see where your content's coming from.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you realize their content is copied from other sites, and you're like, yep, nope.
Yeah. But you're right. That's all social engineering and who knows? The scary thing is it could be an individual that's just a, random independent cyber criminal. It could be an APT. Like, you don't know. Especially, I think that's why cybersecurity people in the field are so wary of social media, is because, you don't know if it's just your random cyber criminal or if it's an APT that's targeting you because of.
But you want to know. I think that's like saying we're at war with those guys, but I'm not going to look at them.
Oh no, I agree. I
Right?
look at that very seriously, and I try to. I'm not on Instagram, but I try to maintain a very keen awareness of like what's happening and why on those platforms, so that I can warn my friends.
Well, I think and I feel like that's where I disagree with you on this, because I feel like you need to be on Instagram. You don't need to post real stuff. You can just post quotes all day. You'd probably get more followers than I do just by posting quotes on Instagram.
So I'm going to let this out. I'm on Twitter, and I don't ever post anything. But honestly,
but all cyber folks are on Twitter.
I don't know how real people have time for Facebook, Instagram. Like, I don't understand that.
I think a lot of people spend time on
for that.
When you're on the can. What are you going to do?
I mean, I'm a get on and get off girl. Like, I don't have time for that.
I mean, when you're on, I mean, seriously, I feel like if you're awake at 3 a.m. and there's famous tweeters at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
In today's society, who are tweeting at 3 and 4 and 5 a.m. like they're mad at breakfast. Right? They're just tweeting at breakfast like hate stuff, and I'm like, how are you bad at breakfast? Like, you just woke up.
Yeah.
Like, have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I don't eat bacon.
Look, if I was up at 3 in the morning, I'd probably have a rough day too. I'm just saying.
Again, just saying, you're having breakfast. No need to tweet at people.
I know, right?
I feel like there's a lot of security folks on Twitter. And Twitter's this great interaction place. And I know a lot of researchers that are on Twitter, and they post a lot of stuff on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Twitter has become the cybersecurity trusted medium.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
LinkedIn,
definitely more so.
LinkedIn is where you find all the biz dev guys trying to sell you crap.
No, God, I know.
Twitter is where you go to talk to others.
Yeah.
And then Facebook and Instagram is where I get information on your husband, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, because that's how I can social engineer you.
Yeah. So and those are the two ones specifically that I actually, I'm going to tell you, I tried Instagram a long time ago. I just could not. I couldn't get it. I could not get into it.
So I do.
And then it got scary. And
I do Instagram stories. I like Instagram stories. I get a ton of views on my stories, and I can see who viewed my stories. So to me, I can see who's following me.
Now, what is an Instagram story? Is that like a series of pictures, like a picture book?
Yeah, it's kind of like
with like some hashtags.
No,
an Instagram. I don't know what that means.
So an Instagram story is something you're posting for a period of 24 hours.
Okay, so like you're constantly updating things.
Hey, everyone, here's my breakfast. Look, upload it to my story rather than on your news feed, right? Rather than on your feed.
Okay.
And I feel like stories are going to replace feeds soon enough. I feel like there's going to, like, I don't see the point of, a feed is what you want to permanently be there. A story is what you want to make disappear. right? So I want people to constantly interact with me, so I'll put stuff on my stories. If I just want a bunch of likes and I'm a like counter, I'll put stuff on my feed.
Okay.
So over the weekend, I was in a bookstore and they had the Edward Snowden book. So I took a picture of it and I just put #traitor and put it on my stories.
Ooh, you were just looking to stir the pot and see what came up.
Well, so my
love
liberal
that.
friends
I
were
love
like,
that.
how is he a traitor? And I'm like,
Exactly. He's stirring the pot. He's like, I know what's going to get some reactions.
well, yes, but then but a ton of people who were in the service were like, absolutely,
Right.
he's a traitor.
Yeah.
And then some of the people who have never served and don't understand, well, all he did was expose something. And I'm like, there's
But
ways to expose
and
it.
he made a promise when he got that clearance that he wasn't going to do
that.
certain things.
Well, and let's say you disagree with that. Everyone who's had a clearance, everyone who's been in the service understands if you don't agree with something, you can go through the whistleblower program, which is what we're going
I
through
know.
now.
We are seeing that, yes,
Yes,
sometimes
that's-
we have problems, but it always comes out in the end.
Right.
Like it does.
And here you go. He could have
Yes.
taken his complaints to the intelligence community. He could have reported it in a legal way. He could have said, I have real problems with some of the stuff that we are using without impacting national security.
Yep. Absolutely.
But he decided to go to a hotel in Hong Kong with a bunch of reporters. That was for his personal glory.
Right.
That was because I believe he has a very, very small
Making a mark.
making
That's
a
what
mark.
he's doing.
Right. And he just wants to make up for that aspect. And then the movie.
I didn't watch it.
I
couldn't
so,
bring myself to do it.
my wife wanted to
Mostly
watch
because
it.
I want to continue liking. Was it
Oliver Stone.
No. The guy that played Snowden.
James Edwards. Edward Levitt.
Gordon
Gordon
some-
Edward
yeah,
Levitt.
I was like, I want to continue to enjoy him, so I'm not going to watch that movie.
So I can
don't
enjoy-
want to have feelings either way.
I watched it. He did a fair acting job in that movie. I think based on the fact that most Hollywood narratives try to make bad people seem like heroes.
Right.
But I felt like it was a portrayal of Snowden being this groundbreaking hero. And I'm like, yeah, that's really not the scenario here. You did not highlight the second part of it, which was everything thereafter. It kind of ends with him kind of on the run going to Russia and then a real interview with Snowden.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and I turned it off right there. But I watched the movie because when I was talking to people who were uneducated about it, they were quoting the movie. And I'm like, okay, I need to see what the fuck you guys are watching.
They're quoting Oliver Stone.
Right, you're quoting Oliver Stone in Hollywood's
Yeah,
narrative.
yeah.
You're not really talking about
What actually
the
happened.
real impact of it.
Yeah.
Right? The real impact of it is it's really kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's like, regardless of what he put out, and the programs that he agreed or disagreed with that were being conducted here, it should be understood by the general public that intelligence and espionage, everyone does it. Like, there is no question in my mind that everyone does it, except for maybe the penguins on the South Pole. Every country.
I think the environmentalists
Yeah.
are the same people who protest Snowden are doing the shit to penguin, whales, and sharks.
Like, you have to have intelligence in order to make educated decisions. You can't compete, you can't make good decisions without it. So it would be obtuse to think that there's any country out there, any organization. I mean, corporate America does it. Corporate anywhere does it. You have to understand your competitors, don't you? Because if I don't understand their products, then how can I compete with them? How can I make sure that I'm competitive, right? How can I maintain an edge? Everyone does it. But that's where you get to the...
But I feel like in our country, though, like when I lived in Israel, there's parts of your life that are not private.
Right.
You just know it, right? You know your phone calls aren't private. There is some system listening in. It's honing in on keywords. If, there's people you interact with that you don't really know who they are. It's part of the general thing of being constantly under attack from all sort of different things, right? But everyone kind of acknowledges and accepts it. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that everyone there does some sort of military service or civil service.
Right. I wish we could do that here.
I wish.
Gosh, I wish we could do that
Here,
here.
I have an idea. I have an idea for the Democratic candidates that want to give free everything. I have no problem with free college as long as they do 2 years of
Right, that's how
military
I got my free
service.
college.
Right, that's how I got.
Yeah.
I
And if you don't qualify for military service because of a health or mental condition,
go drive an ambulance.
Yes, go and do some other type of civil service to help our community,
Help
help
others.
our country.
Go
Exactly.
go,
Right.
and for a year you're going to have to work in a nursing home. Take care of our elderly.
Right.
That teaches you a little bit of humbleness.
Right. Do good, and good will come back
So
to you.
in Israel, they have universal health care, and it was fascinating for me when I moved to Israel. I was 25 years old, and I was feeling really ill, and I went to the hospital, and the first thing they did was care for me. Then they brought me forms to fill out after I was taken care of,
Right.
not before. And I still didn't have universal health insurance at the time because I still hadn't gone to the ministry to complete the documents. You still have that bureaucratic stuff. So I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. I went through multiple exams. I mean, CTs, EKGs. I did a stress test, all kinds of stuff. I had a $200 bill at the end of it. 3 days in the hospital. $200.
Yeah.
Someone asked me here to go, if you get sick, James, what do you do? I was like, I'm going back to Israel.
It's a good plan. It's a good plan.
I was like, I'm going back to Israel
Yeah.
because it was better. But the reason they can afford to do this is because men for 3 years serve in the military. Now, if you can't serve in the military, you drive an ambulance. You go work at a hospital as an administrator. So that
Right.
those are cost savings.
Exactly.
So you have a master administrator and you've got a bunch of qualified people, but then under them, all that level 1 analyst work that's automated
Right.
is done by people who are there for 2 to 3 years and then they leave.
It's just a simple task.
Right. If we did this in this country, I feel like this country would be less divided. But I feel like we'd also have a better sense of security. I feel like all of this kind of comes together at a root of a culture. There's a reason Israel leads the world in cybersecurity. Because they're not only constantly under attack, everyone there serves in the military, cares about it. So people are constantly looking at ways to defend or ways to innovate in all aspects, whether it be in healthcare. I mean, it was fascinating. I don't know if you read the book Startup Nation. And I'm not trying to praise.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
A great book to read about how the ecosystem around Israel Israel was constantly under embargoes and threatened embargoes, right? And if you don't do this, won't have you do this. Well, Israel was like, okay, I guess we're going to have to do it on our own because this is our national security. We're not going to give it up. Now, Israel still has whistleblowers. There's an entire organization of former soldiers in Israel that allegedly purport IDF abuses of human rights of Palestinians. Now, I'm very cautious of it because it's a very, very left-wing, liberal-leaning organization. So they're like, well, we shouldn't be occupying the Palestine. Well, fine, here we go. We pulled out of Gaza. What did we get? Missiles. Friday night, there were like 4 missiles shot from Gaza towards Israel. Right? Now, luckily, they all landed in Palestinian territories. None of them landed in Israeli territory. But there's not a Jew that lives in Gaza, hasn't in 14 years. Their economy's in shambles. When Israel was there, they had a bustling farming communities that they left for them, and they burnt it all. So what are we supposed to do? And the same applies here, right? I feel like if we just did similar stuff, and Augusta is kind of like the height of it all, right? And we'll kind of transition to Augusta. Because this area here is supposed to kind of, I guess in Governor Deal's vision, kind of be very similar to what Netanyahu did in Beersheba in Israel. That was kind of the whole concept behind Augusta and the Georgia Cyber Center. He went to Israel in 2014, came back, said, we're going to do this. Augusta, here we go. Fort Gordon was a huge driver of why Augusta and not, Atlanta or someplace else in Georgia. You're here now in Augusta. Tell us about this ecosystem.
So it's really about getting everyone that's working on the same problem to work together and share information because, when we look at private industry and government and academia with research, you have all these really incredibly smart people in each of them, and they're all, kind of chasing their own thing. And unfortunately, if you're all kind of going in slightly divergent paths, but you have the same idea of what you want to accomplish, you're duplicating a good amount of work. So if we can get everyone to have like a common path and contribute to that work, then I think we get there a lot faster, and I think we probably get a lot further. So like an example of what we envision that means is, if the military has a problem, or let's say the law enforcement community has a problem, they're trying to track criminals doing something a certain way, or industry is seeing these certain trends. That type of problem should be something that the research community, that academia is tackling, right? Because research should have applicability, right?
Right.
If you can't apply what you're researching in any way, shape, or form to benefit the world, then what is it doing? You might think it's really cool, but what we need is more people that are not only brilliant and passionate about pursuing something, but we need to fold them in and give them projects that they can work on and pour that passion into that are going to solve problems. So while, for example, law enforcement may not have millions of dollars to spend on R&D, well, academia and research is funded through programs and grants that can allow them to do that development of a solution. And once they have that solution in place, that can go to private industry to produce that solution, to help provide support for that solution, and that solution can facilitate law enforcement or military or private citizens or whoever it's meant for. But, that's not all that R&D done over here in academia is not always something that's going to be immediately available to or feasible for some of these other sectors, right? So sharing strengths and resources across them, I think, is incredibly useful. But I think if we pull back from that, we're not there in this country and in cybersecurity specifically. And I think part of that is people wanting to have this, I have credit for my thing, and I need to maintain some security of this thing, because if anyone gets a piece of this thing, then it's not mine anymore. But cybersecurity can't be yours or mine, right? It's everyone's. And so if we embrace that we're all better if we're all more secure, it's not about me keeping this secret, right? I shouldn't have this secret proprietary algorithm that's going to save the world and keep it to myself. I have to share it, right? Because otherwise it's not going to save the world.
So I always feel like in cyber there's always that I want to be the best, and everyone should know that.
Absolutely.
And
because we're type A people.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
And I feel like in these ecosystems, egos have to go to the side. And this last June, I took a delegation of CISOs to Israel. And we were in Beersheba. And we sat in a room. And in that room, we had Dell EMC and IBM as the head of R&D. They were like, yeah, we're working on these projects. By the way, our other partners are PwC and all these different organizations. And I'm like, you guys are all competitors. And they're like, and here there's no competition. And here we're all working together to find a common to find a solution to a common problem and take it to market.
Right.
And who takes it to market and
Doesn't
how it's
matter.
done, let the lawyers and the business people solve it. We as researchers are here to solve a problem. Yes, we all have our separate labs, but we collaborate. We have this middle room where we all come together and collaborate on what part of the problem are you working on, because it could be that they're part of the solution and they're part of the solution together.
Right.
Create a great solution for a problem. But oftentimes that's not the case.
Yeah.
I think when you look at specifically on Augusta, what can private enterprise really find here? Because I know Fort Gordon, and I've spoken to others and previous episodes and even on, kind of this segment with Dr. Tom Clark and Steve and others, where they say, hey, this is all about Fort Gordon, but this isn't just federal. This isn't just government. This isn't just military. There's private enterprise here. Can you tell me a little bit about more private enterprise?
So I think that one thing that we've always had here because of Fort Gordon has been those large defense industrial, contracting firms. That's always been here, and I think it's always going to be here as long as the military's here. It's going to continue. I think the opportunity that we see looking forward is the peripheral business. When you look at a large company that's already here for their government business, what are they doing peripherally that is not government related, right? And how can they bring this into the ecosystem? Because if they are already finding a supply of qualified workers or the resources or the connections that they need in this area, why would you not bring those other, business aspects to play in Augusta? I think that it's about seeing this area as a rich, almost like a natural resource, like an untapped natural resource. So, a low cost but high quality of life here. I mean, you've been to Augusta versus Atlanta. The traffic is much better.
It took
here.
us 4 hours to get here this morning because
Right.
of traffic.
But we also have easy access to interstate and a lot of amenities and a beautiful river right behind you. I mean, it's a great place to be. It's a great place to work. We have a university here. We have a technical college here. So you have all of these pieces that you need. But the workforce, and I agree, it can't just be military, because that military piece is kind of an ecosystem in itself, right? But if jobs are coming here that require that don't require clearances, if jobs are coming here that just require the skills, not only do we have cleared people, but we have uncleared people here to take those jobs too.
And I feel like that's one aspect that kind of my hope behind this episode to come out is that you need both. You need good people here. Mm-hmm. You need cleared people here. You need uncleared people here. You need private enterprise, because without private enterprise, this ecosystem can only grow so much. We saw that in kind of Fort Meade. It was very limited to just government.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that private industry is not capturing about this area is I have personally interfaced with so many people that are not ex-military. They don't have clearances, but a couple of them have master's degrees and experience, and they're looking for those non-cleared positions, and they could go to Virginia, but they don't want to. Something's here, their family.
Well, no one wants to be in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C.
Right. That's a bit of a headache. They don't want to relocate. They want that job here. But again, it's those uncleared folks that already have the skills that really contribute to the resources that the area offers.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
I could have talked to you for another 2 hours. I know we could keep going. We'll have you back on.
Awesome.
I think after, maybe we'll do a December special.
Okay.
I like the December special idea.
We can wear little Santa hats or something.
Well,
Reindeer.
I'll wear a Hanukkah menorah, and you can wear a Santa hat.
That's right. And you can spin your dreidel.
And I can spin my dreidel. That's
I'll
about.
throw fake snow in the air because we're in Augusta.
We're in Augusta. There's not going to snow. Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. And I can just spin my dreidel.
Yeah.
And we get to answer questions like in a speed
round.
round.
And I'll give you one present. You'll give me 8, right? That's
right.
How that works.
But do you know how Hanukkah presents work?
You want every day and they're small.
Right. You get a pencil.
Yeah, I know.
Like coloring pens.
I'll take 8 pencils.
And then you get a coloring pencil pack. And you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And the next night you get a coloring book.
Oh, this is what I'm going to do with it.
Right. It's like your stocking stuffers for Christmas. Only instead of one morning, we get them over 8 crazy nights.
Yeah.
The only thing that's great about Hanukkah, we get to eat donuts every night.
I think that's pretty good. That's pretty darn good.
Every night is donuts and
Yeah.
latkes. And latkes are like potato pancakes. Oh, man.
Yeah, those
like
are.
hash
I've
browns.
had those. Those are good.
Yeah, like hash
Those are real
browns.
good.
This is so good. I love Hanukkah. All right, but tomorrow's Yom Kippur, and I can't talk food. I got to fast for the next 25 hours.
You'll be okay.
I'll be fine. I could use the fasting. It's not like I'm a disappear by not eating for 25 hours. All right, Sarah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with more after this message from our sponsors. Hey everyone, I really want you to help me in supporting our early sponsor, Get Smarteye. So Get Smarteye still in beta testing, but what Get Smarteye is, it's an amazing app that lets you control your privacy, whether it be documents, pictures, anything that you want to share with your friends or not. Think of Snapchat only, no screenshots,
and no one else looking over it. So if you travel a lot, if you're in airports, coffee shops, shared workspaces, and you care about your privacy, Get Smarteye is the right app for you to protect your privacy. And here's the deal. Get Smarteye is still in beta testing. I use the app all the time. In fact, some of you know that I travel a lot, and when I do, I don't like people looking at my screen at airports. I do everything off my phone, and as such, I use Get Smarteye for all my sensitive documents and all my planning. So here's what you need to do to be one of our early technology adapters, an exclusive offer for CyberHub Engage listeners. Text 41411, again, that's 41411, 41411, and type in the message of your text, Smarteye. Then reply to the SMS that you're going to get with the letter Y, like Yankee, and download the Apple Test Flight app. Then go back to your SMS and you'll get a link to download the Smarteye app. Download the Smarteye app and use it. Again, this is an early offer for only CyberHub Engage users. Text 41411. Again, that's 41411 with Smarteye in the message.